back everyone to the Hello World guys. This is another episode of the Advanced SFML Mario game series, and in this video we are gonna continue by kind of trying to make our enemy better, because in the last video we set up our enemy but he doesn't really move or interact or anything. So in this video we are gonna make him move, and that's so what I have done here is let me just undo this a bit. So what I've done here basically is that we have created a B2 vector called velocity, which we set to the body's linear velocity, just like we did in Mario, and then we can change this velocity according to our liking, and then we can set the linear velocity back to that. For now, let's just set its x velocity to some value, or say 3 or 5, and this is going to be our speed, and let's go ahead and try that out and see whether that works or not. So that should cause our enemy or whatever to kind of move and just keep moving. It won't stop. So let's go ahead and try that out, and since this is 5, which means it should move towards the right, and it doesn't really have a lot of room towards the right. So yeah, well, let's see what happens. So what you should see is that once this actually starts, yeah, you can see that Mario is here, and if I move Mario and we go all the way over to where that enemy is supposed to be, he should already be at where the wall is. So yeah, you can see he's kind of at the wall right now because he's trying to go into the wall. But what we are gonna do is we're gonna change it and make this negative. The only reason we make this negative is because so that he moves in the left direction, and that we can see him instead of just not being able to see him because he's too far away. So let's go ahead and try that out, and what that should do, it should make the enemy move in the other direction. You can see that he was moving in the other direction, and he stops once he reaches this. So that's pretty awesome, and you can see that just when we reach this, it actually stops. So the Goomba stops moving once he reaches the tile. So that's pretty awesome, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much all we have done right now, and you can see that it is kind of working. But there is a bit of a problem, of course, that we don't want the Goomba to stop. We want the Goomba to kind of change directions after a little while, or when he hits some things or something like that. So how are we gonna go about implementing that? Now you might be saying that let's create a contact listener and create a method to kind of differentiate between the ground tiles and the wall tiles using some magic method or some sensors or something, or some raycasting even, but that is all going to be unnecessary because there is a much simpler method. So right now what I've done is in enemy.h I've created a float called movement that is set to 5 by default, and in here remember that whenever we stop, which means we hit a wall, so whenever we hit a wall, obviously the enemy will stop moving, and when the Goomba stops moving, that means he has hit a wall, and when he stops moving, his velocity x velocity will be 0. So what we are going to do is we are going to see if the x velocity is equal to 0, and we are actually gonna check for absolute value and then do this to have some kind of tolerance in the float point. So we are gonna check if it's less than or equal to 0.02, and we are gonna check the absolute value. If that is the case, then we will just flip our movement, which means that if it is 0, which means that even though we did set it to a higher value, so we are gonna set the velocity dot x to movement, but if it is still 0, it means that we quite obviously hit a wall, and that means that we should probably start moving in the other direction. So let's go ahead and test that out and see whether that works or not, and it should, hopefully. So let's try that out, and what you should see is that yes, Mario is there, and if I go here like there where the Goomba is supposed to be, you can see the Goomba comes here and then he switches the direction, then he goes all the way there and he switches the direction again, and he tries to push us, so we can kind of still push him in the other direction a little bit, but you can see for most of the part the Goomba is working. It's quite interesting, and of course he currently doesn't do any damage. We don't have a death system for Mario yet, so we aren't gonna implement that yet, but you can see that it is working kind of. So we have got kind of a working system to allow the Goomba to move in the correct direction, and also change direction whenever it hits an obstacle. So that is pretty awesome, and yeah, that's all gonna be pretty nice. So this was interesting, but what we should be able to do is we should be able to crush the Goomba by standing on him, his head. And you might be saying how we are going to differentiate between other collisions, and we can of course quite easily do the same way we do the ground collisions. So if this was going to be our ground, then we will just call some method like say die on Goomba and on the enemy, and he'll will just kind of stop all of the physics simulations, and then we'll make it so that you know, and the Goomba kind of just stops doing anything, and then the sprite we are gonna make it smaller so that he looks crushed, and a little bit after we are gonna just delete this sprite. And so yeah, let's go ahead and try to do that. Well, we can handle all of that really easily by creating two variables here, a destroy timer which is set to 0 and a boolean called isDead which is set to false. We also have a void die which is a function here, and when this die function is called, we just destroy the body and set isDead to true. By the way, you might have noticed actually that while this does work, the destroy body function, you might have noticed that the actual fixtures are not destroyed. Well, the physics system will take care of destroying the fixture when it's required. For now we can just destroy the body and leave the fixtures alone. And if I were to go under my update method right now, what you should see is that before we do anything else, we have got a if statement here that checks for it is dead, and if this enemy is dead, then we just add delta time to the destroy timer, and if that destroy timer exceeds 2 seconds, or maybe we can make it 3, let's make it 3, then we delete this object. We call this delete object, which is of course present in the game.h header file, and we also return, because of course we don't want to do any of this if the enemy is dead. And if I were to go under mario.cpp, we if it does not work, if any of these does not work on begin contact, we also check if the ground fixture is equal to this fixture, which means we were colliding with the ground fixture, and the thing that we collided with was a object, and the tag of that object was enemy. Then we use dynamic cast to cast this object to an enemy, and this enemy is a valid pointer, then we just go ahead and say enemy and call the die method on it. And we dynamic cast we use here because we don't actually know if it will be an enemy or not, but we can use this dynamic cast to easily convert the object to an enemy, and that's pretty awesome. And let's go under enemy.cpp, and while that would work, it does not create the crushing effect yet. So what we are gonna do is, when we are rendering, we are gonna say is dead, and we can just use a question mark here, and if it is dead, we can use a smaller value for this. So you might use any value that you like, of course, but let's just for example use 0.1. For example, you can of course use any value that you like, and if it's not that, then we'll just use 0. We are of course gonna crush only on the Y, and let's go and run that and see whether that works or not, and it should hopefully work. So yeah, it should compile everything correctly, and once it starts, what you should see is that we do get this. So you can see that we do get Mario here, and that looks pretty awesome, and our enemy is doing what it needs to do, kind of moving around. And if I go and step on the enemy, you can see that he gets crushed and then he is removed. However, he gets crushed in the center, which means that it kind of looks a bit awkward, because he does not fall to the ground, because this is supposed to be according to the center of the position. So if the enemy is dead, then what we'll need to do is we'll need to also position the actual sprite kind of lower. So we need to move it, to be honest, we'll need to move it a small value, say 0.4 down, so that it works correctly. So let's do that real quick. It's not gonna be too difficult. So you can see I've basically done that real quick, and if it's not that, then we'll do position, and if it is dead, then we'll add 0.45, which is a bit of a calculated value, and we'll just add that. And I'm gonna go under physics.cpp and just remove the what do you call it, so the debug drawing. So we are gonna remove that, just set it to 0u, because I think we don't really need the debug drawing anymore. And let's go ahead and run that and see whether this works or not. And what you should see is that it does work. So let's go ahead and try that out. And you can see we have got our Mario here, and I can jump and I can move. And once Mario reaches this, if I step on him, you can see that he gets crushed, and after 3 seconds he disappears. But 0.1 may be a bit too small, I don't know really. So let's go under enemy.cpp and change that to 0.2, and change this to 0. Let's just keep it at that. And yeah, that's pretty awesome. And let's change this back to 2 seconds, because 3 seems a bit long. So let's go ahead and try that out and see whether it works or not, and it should work correctly. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's try that out, see whether it kind of works. So what you should see is that if I were to go and jump on the Goomba, so jump on him, like, oh, I'm not even managing to do that. And if I were to jump on the Goomba, he gets crushed, and after a little while he disappears when the thing is deleted. And of course I can collect the coins and they show up in the UI correctly. So we have pretty much got everything done, most of the stuff done. Currently of course we don't have a death system for Mario, so that's what we are gonna start doing in the next video, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe as well, and share this video with other people, and bye.